board is really.
Sure, sure. We should begin with what Eric and Ron did, which is that Eric went and scored like how many sheets of masonite?
Yeah, Eric took 8 sheets, parent sheets, 4x8 sheets of masonite from Home Depot, and cut those down to 19 by 25. So we got 10 pieces out of each sheet. So we have 80.
Very economical.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, but I mean, really, it saves so much money. It does.
Oh yeah, it was a fraction.
And they'll cut them down for you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they'll cut them. They have a big saw there, and they'll lop them down. But they may charge you a certain price per cut. But if you're ganging up sheets, that's one cut through 4 sheets or something. That's not so bad.
And then we took those and took acrylic gloss house paint, interior, exterior, white, and rolled them on, one coat, and that's what we have.
Grounded, yeah.
So that's the ground that we're working on. It's a very slick surface, you can tell. It's not very absorbent at all. So you can pull out and all that other stuff. So that's what allows you to do that.
Would that be enough, or would it be okay to gesso over this?
Well, if you gesso it, it's going to make it absorbent.
Yeah, if you gesso it, you're not going to get. You get very different results with your brush work, and you will have to really sometimes grind. You know. Well, yeah, or you could take. You really want a kind of a plain surface, get a nice paper board, you know, medium tooth, maybe a watercolor board or illustration board, and hit with gloss polymer, like acrylic medium. If you do matte medium, it will be stiffer and more resistant. You can cut and mix, get something in between. You know, play a little around and find what works for you. But this what we're doing here today, and this acrylic, this house paint is acrylic, so it's the same binder that's in gesso, that's in acrylic medium. So, and believe me, the oil paint does not come back off. Once it dries, it's blank. However, you can't go the other way around with such hope. You can't. Acrylic over oil is not a guaranteed way to go.
Okay, so masonite, house paint,
And then linseed oil on it, so you're not working on a dry surface.
Yeah, make it a wet receiver.
And now oil it up so you can really move it around.
And you don't do anything to the paint, just so the paint right on?
Well, I mean, I'm using linseed in my paint as well.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've got a medium. And you cut that to your preference as well. But if you get too much medium in there, you will have to lay the piece down overnight. Otherwise, you'll come back the next day to find out it's drifted, for a while there. Oh, they see it, yes. Oh, well, no. That's a big set. The whole lecture could have been about that. No, seriously.
Well, what I mean is, I was just wondering where that technique you were using, where you laid some fabric down?
No, not even fabric. It was actually it's a lovely book. A set of books. It's Racinette's, it's Dover Books, Racinette's History of Ornament, I think it's called, and there's 2 volumes of it, and there's another one, Owen's Grammar of Ornament. And what these gentlemen did is that they just went around the world with a team of engravers and draftsmen, and very diligently copied down in total plan views, ceramics, ornamental styles off pillars and whatnot. And the interesting thing was that since that was completely a plan view imposition of a ceramic layer, that you would think, well, that's pretty limiting as far as being able to make it look like fabric moving in and out of light and dark and bending and folding. But it turns out it isn't. And the reason is, if you cue the very powerful, what they call the wear system of your vision, and that's about motion, space, depth, movement, location, things like that. And it sees no color. It's black and white. And this is what we share with the rest of the animal kingdom. And it's an older component of our vision, evolutionarily speaking. Our color vision is a much more recent development. We share it with the primates, and it's not a wear thing. It's a what thing. It's about the grain, the color, the internal contrast. It's about object identification, things like that. And it'll go so far as to say, well, it doesn't impose its will on that sort of movement. So the luminance vision takes over and says, I'm seeing light and dark here in the form of something waving in the wind. This is waving in the wind. Your color vision will not contradict it. It'll say, yeah, I guess I go with that. It's cake.
So what is that called?
What is that called?
Yeah. You call it something specific to recognize
I call it tricking the viewer. I'm not sure. I mean, the luminance-based vision, the luminance. Oh, all right, yeah, that's the older stuff. That's your black and white, but that's what you use when you get up in the middle of the night and you stumble around when you go to the bathroom, whatever. Everything's in black and white and grays. You don't see color under those conditions, and that's what's taken over for you. It doesn't have quite the resolution as the fine-grained stuff near the fovea that is colored. Some of it's very strong in the peripheral vision because it's going to spot attackers, it's going to spot movement. And the arborization, in other words, the tree-like growth of the photoreceptors is very broad. When you get towards the fovea, the sharper part of your vision, where the color photoreceptors are, some of those have such minimal arborization as to have only actually one single trunk to the surface of the retina. And that is the finest thing you can see, is the width of information, the bit of information that comes into one photoreceptor from one axis. The rest of the stuff arborizes, to cover more areas. And there are many reasons why it's well to know how those things act, because you can actually use them in painting. There's also other things about center-round suppression, which makes us sensitive to discontinuity as information. For instance, if you looked at a perfectly blue sky and you digitized it, little squares for you had data assigned for every pixel of that blue sky, and you put that same blue sky with a hawk in it, the information looks about the same. It's a mother lode of information. But if in fact you're built to see something that simply makes it discontinuous, and there are cells that do this, there are optical illusions we can use based on this. What happens then is says, this discontinuity I've assigned information, everything else is blue. Gets one number, sort of like a JPEG almost. And this sensitizes us to edges and to change and things like that. The bearing this has on painting is don't put too much stuff in it. The eye doesn't need it. And in fact, this can make slow going for a picture actually having impact for someone. That's why when you see the breathtaking economy of a sergeant, his mastery is all the stuff he left out, the thing he just did in a gesture of paint. And yet, you see it. He knows exactly what to cue, and then he doesn't weigh you down with bags of other information that simply, holds you up. And you have seen persnickety paintings in the past that are just over fussy, and the person is, they've held your hand the whole way, and they've really left no room for you to make any jumps. I always think of that as sort of journeyman work. It's not something you'd see Degas do. You know? And I just thought it was fascinating that there was an actual biological basis for why that was the right thing to do, why those paintings are more effective. We're built to see that way. And there's a real evolutionary reason for it, because less processing is less energy, and it's also quicker. So to be sensitized that way, it makes us faster in our percept. We use the knowledge soup in our head to fill in the rest of the sky's blue. Done. I can make a decision. I can move on. And that's just how fast a picture can have impact on you. Yeah, there's actually two major things we could have pursued had there been time and space and venue and all that sort of stuff. We could have talked about one, the biological basis for perception, and then we could also have talked about what consciousness is as opposed to your unconscious. And typically people think the unconscious is the retarded brother of the conscious, and it's unfortunately, I think, rather the other way around. Your consciousness, a metaphor that I like to use, your consciousness really is too slow to do many of the things you want to do. Too slow for you to catch on to the patterns in the surface and how to exploit them. And so if you imagine you're going to hit a baseball, and you can't with your, I used this on Ron earlier. You must be so bored with me.
No.
But imagine you're, let me just turn this off. Want me to turn this off for a moment? All right. Imagine you're going to hit a baseball, and you're going to do it with your consciousness, what you're conscious of, like the big know-it-all in your head. And I'm going to be setting on my left foot now, and I'm going to put my right foot up. I'm at the plate now. Okay, he's going to get my bat up here and there. All right, and he's about to throw, and when he does, I'll stop. You can't hit a 96-mile-an-hour baseball with your consciousness. You cannot do it. You have to let it go. The thing that can hit it, which is doing hundreds of thousands of more calculations a second than your consciousness can, is your unconscious. And it is massively more powerful. It may even know about your consciousness and not particularly care about it, for all I know. I think it does. A lot of people have to rationalize after the fact, consciously, why they did what they did. But they weren't the one that was really pulling the coach or steering it. And they don't have self-knowledge because they won't admit to themselves that their consciousness isn't actually the boss. It's like being in love with love. They have this idea of themselves, and they're sure that must be why they did what they did. They just can't explain why they just did that just then. Because the real boss made them do it. And you should be up to this about yourself. It's doing a zillion things per second that you're not even aware of. When you drive a car, when you scratch your head, when you adjust, all these sorts of things, you keep all this other stuff, Your talk box that's related to your consciousness, there's a beautiful little peacock right in front of you. It's hardly the center of your being. This other thing is taking care of your entire life while you're busy sort of dancing on the stage of it. So if you can deploy that monster when you're painting, you can make big-ass marks really quick. And for me, it really is sort of a bit of a monster. It really takes over. I'm not interested in phone calls while I'm painting. I'm not particularly articulate. And if I come up to speed on the phone, I go back, I can no longer see what I'm doing. And then I have to somehow just let go of all the thinking I'm doing and start seeing again. And then it goes, this is it. And boom, 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 boom. The figure does this. Those roll back to the light. Shadows should creep up from this side. They just was right in front of me. You use it all the time. You use it to recognize buildings, to drive cars. I just work it the other way. I provoke it into being off service. And it says, oh yeah, really? It goes like this. That's what scribbling is about for children. This is easily exploitable to something. This is a case where you can actually, let this just sit down and dry, and then you hit this with opaques afterwards, and it'll just catch fire. And it's just amazing what you can do. And just leave this as a, the scaffolding for whatever, it's gas, isn't it? It's a sandwich.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah.